Boris Johnson is our new Prime Minister, but don't get distracted by the circus. Waving a kipper around in the air, knocking a child down in a game of rugby. We all remember the zip wire, don't we? That was hilarious, wasn't it? Through a lot of the Conservative leadership elections, Boris has been a bit of a spectacle of bemusement, full of gaffes, untucked shirts, messy hair, that kind of thing. But this circus is a distraction, and his policy agenda is no laughing matter. His policies could reshape Britain. We were told by much of the mainstream media that Johnson was swept into victory by a landslide, and it sure was a landslide. But it was an election that only 0.2% of the population were allowed to vote in. He's the first Prime Minister ever to be directly elected by a political party. This is unprecedented. Johnson has promised drastic changes to government policy, and these are changes that neither you or I have a say over. So who has had a say?
Let's start with Conservative Party members. Privileged 0.2% of the population that got to directly elect a Prime Minister for the first time ever. Professor Tim Bale took a look at who these Conservative Party members are and what they think about the key issues. These voters are richer than average, whiter than average, older than average, and more male than average. In no way does the membership of this party represent the diversity of the UK. But it's not just Conservative Party members that boosted Boris Johnson into power. Johnson was backed by The Sun and The Times, owned by the billionaire Rupert Murdoch. Backed by The Telegraph, owned by the billionaire Barclay brothers. He was backed by the Daily Mail, whose controlling shareholder is the billionaire Viscount Rodmere. He was backed by the Evening Standard, which is majority owned by the billionaire Lebedev family. And it's not just those billionaire press barons that are salivating at the prospect of Johnson's vision for a low-tax corporate state.
Money has been pouring into Johnson's pockets straight from the City of London. Since the 24th of May, when Theresa May announced that she'd be standing down, nearly half of donations that Johnson's received for his campaign have come straight from the city. City hedge fund managers, traders and the like have all been lining up to line Johnson's pockets. And guess what? The rich aren't stuffing his pockets for nothing. Boris Johnson is from the elite. He's been boosted into power by the elite. So it shouldn't really come as much of a surprise that the policy agenda that he's putting together is going to disproportionately benefit the elite. That's what they're paying for, right? For the richest in Britain, it's well and truly boom time. The share of income going to the richest 1% of people in this country has nearly tripled in the last 4 decades. That's according to research by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. The Equality Trust also found that in just 1 year, that's between 2018 and 19, the richest 1,000 people increased their wealth by a staggering £47.8 billion. In the last 5 years, that growth has been £253 billion.
At the same time, inequality in the UK is spiralling, public services are collapsing, and local councils are facing bankruptcy because of the central government funding cuts. But Johnson has indicated he wants to cut taxes for the richest. His proposal to increase the threshold for the 40% tax rate would benefit the richest 12% of people in this country. This giant giveaway to the richest in our society would mean that there's £9 billion less to spend on public services. But this is completely at odds with public opinion. We're actually seeing more people saying that they're willing to pay higher taxes if it means better quality public services. There's plenty out there to suggest that Johnson's vision of a low-tax, small-state Britain is actually out of step with what the majority of the population wants. But Johnson wasn't voted in by the public after all. He was voted in by a tiny minority.
Something is seriously wrong in British politics. We have a pay-to-play political system where, on the whole, the say that you have is determined by the size of your bank account. The billionaires have lined up behind Johnson because they've paid him to represent their interests and they've boosted him into power. Johnson has been bestowed with a huge amount of power by a very tiny minority of this country. Behind the buffoonery, there's a very serious policy agenda that threatens to give even more power and even more wealth to a smaller and smaller number of people. We simply can't afford to get distracted by the circus. We have to hold Boris Johnson and his drastic policies to account.
What did you think of what we were saying in this video? If you liked it, share it with your friends and let us know what you thought in the comments.